tedious, cramped, confusing. These are but a few of the many descriptions of the most hated city-state of 1.0, Limsa Lominsa. She was designed as a bustling maritime city-state, but few bothered walking across her many docks and boardwalks. And as Dalamud threatened the world with infinite destruction, Limsa Lominsa was left in an eerie silence. 'Cause even as her gates were thrown open to accommodate fleeing adventurers, no one wanted to spend their final days in Limlane's city-state by the sea. Limsa Lominsa's history is both fascinating and bizarre, and it all starts in the year 874 of the 6th astral era. Aerslant, located northwest of Eorzea, is in political turmoil. A failed coup against Aerslant's tyrannical government forced the flagship Galadian out to sea under the command of Eliwain, a Rogadan sea wolf born in 826 of the 6th astral era. The ship had sustained some damage during the harrowing escape, but she was still seaworthy. The crew had no choice but to sail on in search of a new place to settle. The journey was a harsh one. Many a crewman would succumb to scurvy, but the men had faith as their loadsman, that's the ship's navigator, ensured they would steer clear of the most dangerous parts of the seas. It would take a year before the Galadian, having sailed southward for most of the time, finally ran aground on the shore of Vilbrand. Unfortunately, only 2 days before, the loadsman passed away from scurvy. We don't know the loadsman's first name, but his last name, Lenosha, was promptly given to the island he had safely guided them to. The Galadian, now completely wrecked at the shore, could no longer be used for transportation. This was it. This was their new home. 2 Ellison helmsmen were sent out to scout for any settlements. Jean de Neuville would head to the west and Guy Lethagran to the east. The men would quickly return to the new settlement, reporting sightings of the kobolds. And the kobolds were not happy with the sudden intrusion of their homeland, and skirmishes broke out. Outnumbered, Eliwain ordered his men back to the safety of the Galadian, abandoning their initial settlement in the process. The men would have to establish a settlement off the island proper before attempting to settle on the island itself. Using materials from the Galadian, the men would construct bridges across small islands located near the wreck site. And just like that, the foundations of Limsa Lominsa was born. In 1.0, Limsa Lominsa was located in the northwestern part of Lower Lenosha, very close to Camp Bearded Rock. As 1.0 city-states had no loading barriers, Limsa had a bridge connection to Vilbrand called Procession of Turns. Just like the other city-states we've covered in this series, Limsa Lominsa was one zone with no loading barriers. She was, however, divided in 2 vertically. The 2 districts of Limsa Lominsa were called the Upper and Lower Decks, and would be one of the reasons why it would grow to become the least attractive city-state in the game. In this part, we'll take a closer look at the Lower Decks, starting at the Procession of Turns. Right off the bat, we're faced with what feels like the longest loading tunnel in the game. However, the Lominsan loading tunnel is by far the most creative and open of all the city-states, in that it's not an actual tunnel. Only at one point does the character enter any sort of superstructure, this gatehouse. The seamless zone change takes place within this gatehouse as seen here. Entering the gatehouse, Bulwark Hall turns black as the zone change begins, and returns when the transition is completed. Limsa's loading tunnel appears the most natural of all the 3 city-states, but it's also the longest. After crossing Procession of Turns, we make it to Bulwark Hall. Now this area is one of the areas that changed the most in the Lower Decks. Right off the bat, you'll probably notice that the chocobo stables are located inside the hall itself. As you can probably imagine, placing chocobo stables in a city-state like Limsa Lominsa is not easy. It is possible they thought Bulwark Hall would provide the chocobos some protection from rough seas and bad weather, but its position right outside the hole makes more sense to me. You'd want your animals to at least be out in the fresh air. Now, as 1.0's Limsa Lominsa was one zone, the stairs leading up to the upper decks acted as actual stairs. They would spiral up until you had arrived at the Drowning Wench. But Bulwark Hall actually had 2 stairwells leading to the upper decks. The second stairwell was located here, and would lead to a boardwalk that would lead you further up, eventually splitting into 2 paths. One would lead directly to the upper decks, and the other would continue around the main structure, past a window looking into the stairwell where you could see other players passing by and wave to them, I guess. The window served no actual purpose other than spying on whoever was using the stairs, but it was there. The boardwalk would continue for quite a while before coming to an abrupt end. Now, in A Realm Reborn, of course, the boardwalk entrance has been entirely removed. The remnants of the boardwalk still exists, but it's only available through the upper decks, and the path that would lead you to the lower decks is removed. They even removed the old stairwell window, but if you look closely, you can actually see the outline of it right here, as the textures don't line up. Exiting Bulwark Hall, you'd be entering the Octant, and let's just address the elephant in the room right away. Yes, that's a stone monument, and yes, it kinda looks like an aetheryte, and no, it was not an actual aetheryte. The square was built to honor the inventor of the Octant, often hailed as the father of modern navigation, Giovanni Nonno. The square was in the shape of an octagon, with 8 sides, with the big stone monument in the middle. This was called the Octagon. This area would obviously change quite a lot in A Realm Reborn as it became the Aetheryte Plaza. The name still remains, but the monument is long gone. East and West Hawker's Alley contained vendor items, just like today, and would only see changes in stock after the relaunch. However, in the area between East and West Hawker's Alley, Hawker's Round, there used to be a northern passage leading to a series of unnamed docks. These docks never contained anything of real interest, except for this seagull statue, which could also be found near the Fisherman's Guild and in the upper decks. The docks stretched out for quite a bit to the north and east, with a second connection point at the spiral staircase that led to both the Octant and the upper decks. After the calamity, most of the docks most likely got destroyed, hence why only a few short docks can be seen where they used to be. The random statue is also completely gone. Walking through West Hawker's Alley, we come to the ferry docks, which would be where you first set foot in the city-state if you chose Limsa Lominsa as your starting city. Although not much has changed visually here, it is important to note that due to the game's transport system running on a real schedule, the area past the ticket booth was fully explorable, and would be where you'd be standing while waiting for the ferry to arrive. Melvan's Gate, which we now know better as the Arcanists Guild, also remains more or less the same today, with the exception of it being an actual guild. As Arcanist never got implemented in 1.0, it didn't serve a guild purpose for the players, but NPCs would clearly be wearing the 1.0 Arcanist weapons on their backs. Across the road from Melvan's Gate, there actually used to be a passage leading to a mysterious building that never opened its doors. It's unknown what the building was meant to be, but the icon above the door seems to suggest some sort of auction house. That would be really odd, because the icon could not be found anywhere else in Eorzea. This is the only city-state where that icon could be found. Stranger still is the fact that it's not even marked on the map. The building takes up quite a lot of space on the map as well, which is even stranger. A popular theory at the time was that an auction system was planned but abandoned early in development. While they could easily replace or remove buildings from the other more modular city-states, the same could not be done in Limsa Lominsa, where the buildings were permanently fixed to the overall map. So with that theory and no way to remove the actual building without having to redesign that portion of the map, they simply removed the label from the map and left it as an unmarked area. This obviously does not explain why the sign wasn't taken down, but again, we may never really know. Also, there's this weird comment by the Yellow Jacket standing guard outside. I don't know if that helps. If you have any theories or even answers I've been unable to find about this, please do sound off in the comments. I'm so curious about this building. I need to know if it had any explanation anywhere in the game. Might have been a cutscene or something that I've missed. So please do let me know in the comments. Because whatever it was supposed to be, it clearly got destroyed in the Calamity. Today, there's no trace of the building. In fact, it looks like it's been retconned, as there doesn't seem to have ever been anything there in the first place. Moving on now to Fisherman's Bottom. Not much has changed between the versions, but the path leading from the Octant and connects to the Fisherman's Guild in A Realm Reborn used to be a dead end in 1.0, leading to another one of these seagull statues. And again, if you know what these are for, I would like to know in the comments. I believe they might be for Lim Lane, seeing as the one in the upper decks has Lim Lane stone in it, but I'm not quite sure why there are 3 of them. Perhaps the strangest difference in 1.0 was the Astalicia. In A Realm Reborn, it's nothing more than a docked ship, but in 1.0, this was the Marauders Guild. Huh? I hear you ask yourself, but the Marauders Guild is in the Coral Tower in the upper decks. Well, in 1.0, the Coral Tower was the Musketeers Guild, and the Marauders resided in the Astalicia. It was only in A Realm Reborn that the 2 guilds combined, as the Musketeers never came to be. More on that in part 2. Limsa Lominsa might have been the least enjoyable city-state, thanks to its tedious design and placement of important NPCs and the like. But 1.0, Limsa Lominsa's theme, called Navigator's Glory, still remains my favorite 1.0 city-state theme. Thank you for watching this episode of Remnants of a Realm. I hope you enjoyed this glance back at Limsa Lominsa before the Calamity. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I'll be back with part 2 real soon, where we'll look closer at the upper decks and why Limsa Lominsa became such a disliked city-state in 1.0. Until then, may you ever walk in the light of the crystal.